Good evening, everyone. Welcome again to another live streaming of Basic Transfer Pricing Philippines. I would like to say thank you po sa ating mga subscribers. Ilang subscribers na tayo right now, Ari? 738? 41 na kanina nakita ko ah. Sa ano? So thank 741 no as of April 19, 2021. So thank you very much po sa ating mga subscribers and welcome again to another live streaming of this Basic Transfer Pricing Philippines, no? And I would like to remind yung ating mga uh, companies na kailangan talaga nila or mandatorily they are required to file BIR Form 1709, no? The deadline for those ending December 31, 2020, the deadline is April 30. Kaya pwede pa po kayo mag-receive, no? Or submit it through EAFS, no? Merong video dyan sa Sir Harry na yung papaano po mag-submit ng BIR Form 1709 online, no? Through EAFS. Okay. So, we will discuss tonight ano ba yung mga tinatawag natin na sham transactions, recharacterization, substance over form, and we will discuss a little about financial transactions, no? Because these are the issues tackled by the case that we are going to discuss tonight, and that is the Commissioner of Income Tax versus the Aegis Limited, no? This is in the High Court of Judicature at Bombay, Ordinary Original Civil Jurisdiction, Income Tax Appeal Number 1248 of 2016, no? Simple lang siya na case, but ang issue niya is maganda yung mga issues niya, no? May mga sinasabi sila dito na substance over form, no? And then meron mga financial transactions. When we talk of financial transactions, these are transactions na between related parties that involve the use of money, no? May pera involved dito. Kasi nga, sabi na nga natin, financial. So ano ba to? Nagpapautang through interest or sometimes yung insurance. No, these are financial transactions. So when we say financial transactions, that is agreement or communication carried out between a buyer and a seller to exchange an asset for payment. No, pwede rin. Basta may money involved. It involves change in the status of the finances of two or more businesses or individuals. No? Kasi pag sinabi mong financial transactions, either may manghiram or may magpapautang, and then in that case, may changes yung financial condition ng bawat isa. Kasi yung isa, mababawasan yung asset niya kasi pinahiram dun sa iba, but mag-earn naman siya ng interest. No? And yun yung mga issues na sabi ng transfer pricing, it should be arm's length. Why arm's length? Kasi especially if magpapautang ka ng pera, and of course, if it is a financial transactions, then the money that you lend should earn interest. And when we say interest, meron niyang tinatawag natin na bank interest rate, no? Or dito sa Pilipinas, yung Bangko Sentral interest rate or yung legal rate of interest. No? But in this case, na loan, no, yung related parties, at meron silang tinatawag dito na guarantee fees. No? And then the guarantee fees is mas mababa. No? Nag-adjust ang transfer pricing officer, ginawa niyang 5%, pero ang Aegis, sinabi niya dapat 1% lang. And then, pinanigan sila dito ng korte because ang sabi ng court, magkaiba ang bank guarantee as compared to corporate guarantee. No? So, kaya maganda itong case na to. And then, we have the substance over form. What is the substance over form? It is the concept that the financial statement and other accompanying disclosures of a business should reflect the underlying picture of transactions or event. Kasi kung ano yung pinakita mo, yun dapat yung underlying, yung anong pinapakita mo na picture, yun dapat yung underlying transactions niya. Hindi yung, iba yung harap, pero iba pala yung totoong substance, no? Kaya nga, in case of conflict between the substance and its form, what will prevail, no? It's always the substance. Kasi ito yung pinapakita mo eh. Pero in truth and in fact, hindi pala yun, ito pala yung totoo. So what will prevail? The substance, hindi yung form. Oh. Sinabi mo yung contract is contract of lease, pero hindi pala. Installment sale na pala. So what will prevail? The installment sales, no? Kasi yun talaga ang substance ng kontrata. And then we have another here, yung tinatawag na recharacterization. When we say recharacterization, we mean reversal. Ano yung reversal? Ni-reverse natin kung ano man yung na-characterize nila na klase ng transactions. Pagdating na po sa transfer pricing audit, meron tayong reversal, no? Kaya tuloy-tuloy pa itong ating mga discussions about transfer pricing. Why? Kasi there are so many group of companies pa na nangangapa pa sila sa kanilang mga compliance. That's why tuloy-tuloy pa po tayong mga discussions natin. And then, sham transaction is a business transaction that is entered into for the sake of avoiding tax. Pag sinabi mong sham transaction, para ba siyang fraud, no? Parang sinadya. Bakit? Sinadya na baguhin, misrepresentation, at anong purpose? To avoid payment of taxes, no? Kaya nga ang reason sometimes nagkaroon ng adjustment, nagkaroon ng disallowance yung deductions, and the reason is it is a sham transactions, as if talagang hindi siya totoo na transactions, no? It is just treated as a transaction for the sake of avoiding the payment of taxes. No? So yun yung mga tandaan natin sa transfer pricing ha, yung sinasabi natin na substance over form. When there is conflict between the form and the substance will prevail. And ito naman yung ating mga financial transactions kasi when there is a transfer pricing audit, no? Bukas magle-lecture ako sa group of companies ng about transfer pricing audit guideline. That's why hindi natin tapusin ngayon yung 2 oras kasi yung mahina na yung battery natin. Halos katatapos lang ng FS, ng transfer pricing analysis, wala pa tayong tulog, no? So, mahina pa yung battery natin and then may lecture pa bukas. That's why sabi ko, anyway, maiksi lang po yung case natin. Kaya sabi ko hindi ko aabot ng 2 hours, no?
Shoutout tayo na.
Oh, sige, shoutout.
Shoutout kay Jules Springs.
Sinasagot kita sa messenger, Jules, thank you for watching. Masipag talaga si Jules, no? Okay. So, umpisa natin yung ating case ngayon. This is the Commissioner of Income Tax versus the Aegis Limited. And meron din po pala tayong how to amend, no, percentage tax. Tingnan ninyo dyan sa video natin under tax training, no? Meron tayo dyan kasi yun yung dapat talaga gawin ng mga taxpayers ngayon subject to percentage tax, no? They have to amend their income tax return. Okay. Napaka-simple lang yan na discussion, pero at least alam nyo at may guide kayo kung paano gagawin. Okay. So, ano po itong case na to na Commissioner of Income Tax versus Aegis Limited? Sa India po ito, no? And alam naman natin that India is very good in transfer pricing, no? They have trained their transfer pricing officers at ang bilis nilang mag-resolve ng cases in transfer pricing. Okay. So, the revenue has filed, itong revenue, ito yung Commissioner of Income Tax, has filed an appeal challenging the judgment of the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal. Bakit siya nag-appeal? Kasi yung mga findings niya walang pinanigan yung appellate tribunal, no, ng income tax. Parang sa atin Court of Tax Appeal, no? Talo siya doon sa Court of Tax Appeal. Ang Court of Tax Appeal is on the side of the taxpayer or Aegis Limited. Kaya nag-appeal dito yung tax authority, no? And what are the issues, no? The following questions were pressed, no, or presented before the court. So, number 1, whether on the facts and circumstances of the case and in law, alam nyo, pagka basa tayo ng cases, umpisa talaga tayo sa facts and circumstances, no? Kaya nga may nagrereklamo sa akin na, you make a summary, gawan ko daw ng summary. Sabi ko, and even sa ibang mga cases, umaten ako ng mga webinars, no, na may mga cases din, representing cases. So, ang ginagawa nga nila, gawa-gawa lang sila ng diagram, no? Ito yung name of the company, ito yung functions, bullet point. In the end, wala kang maintindihan, no? Bakit? They just present na ito yung decision. Decision lang yan eh, no? Alam nyo, hindi ako particular on the decision. Particular ako on the deliberation of the case. That's why talagang I go through the long process. Ayoko yung mga dire-diretso na shortcut. Kasi wala akong naiintindihan. Wala akong naiintindihan. Ito nga, sinabi nyo lang ang decision, but how the court arrived on that decision? At ano yung nangyayari? Bakit sila nagkaroon ng ganyan decision? No? So, I really start with the facts and circumstances of the case. But sad to say, itong case na to, since appeal na lang siya, hindi discuss dito yung facts and circumstances of the case. No? Kasi yun ang mahaba. The Income Tax Appellate Tribunal erred in not considering the fact that the assessee had actually advanced or lent money to its associated entities in the garb of preference shares, leading to attraction of provisions relating to transfer pricing in the case of the assessee in view of Section 92B of the Act, without appreciating the fact that these preferential shares do not carry any dividend and are beyond scope of any capital appreciation. Alam nyo, ito yung pinaka tip natin, no? Or advice natin pagdating na sa transfer pricing. That's why very careful tayo, especially in the compliance, no? And then on the treatment ng mga transactions natin, no? Kasi bakit? Kagaya dito, no? There is a question by the transfer pricing officer on the capital appreciation at tinrate niya na loan or advances yung shares, no? Yung preference shares. Kasi ang preference shares, ano yan eh, it's a liability in the part of the company. Bakit? Kasi in the event na mag-liquidate na or magkaroon ng income ang company, yung preferred share, preference talaga yun, bayaran talaga yun, mas nauna yan kaysa common shares, no? So, yung preference share, investment ng isang related company ay tinrate niya na advances or loan. So, iba kasi yung loan, no? Ito sa tax issues and financing transactions. Iba yung loan, iba yung equity, no? Kaya yung debt to equity, iba yung utang, iba yung investment sa shares of stocks, no? At ano yung mga advantage if you invest in shares of stocks or nagpapautang ka lang ng pera, no? If nagpautang ka ng pera, high risk. Why? Because the moment na yung pinautang mo hindi makabayad, no capacity to pay, wala na, hindi ka na babayaran, no? But if you invest in the shares of stocks, then ownership of the company, ikaw yung owner, no? So, ano yung high risk ba siya compared doon sa nagpahiram ka lang ng pera? Hindi, kasi bakit? May mga assets yung company at saka nag-ooperate, no, as a continuing concern. So, tuloy-tuloy ang ano mo doon, ang stable yung pinaglagyan mo ng pera mo. But, ang hindi stable doon, yung kikitain ng pera mo. Why? Kasi if you invest in shares of stocks at hindi kumita yung company, wala din kita yung investment mo. Unlike na nagpautang ka, yes, it is high risk, pero malugi man o hindi malugi yung company, tuloy na babayaran ka. No? Kaya instead of mag-invest ka sa isang company, magpautang ka na lang. No? Kasi pag nagpautang ka, mas mataas yung interest. So may income ka talaga, may gain. May interest income ka na ma-earn doon sa pinautang mo. Unless na nag-invest ka sa shares of stocks, pag walang kita, wala kang kita din dahil hindi mag-i-issue ng dividend. Because right now, lalo na isi-isi natin, napakahigpit. No? Anong ginagawa sa isi-isi natin ngayon? Attachment to the financial statement, diba, meron ng reconciliation of written earnings, no, for the declaration of dividend, because you cannot declare dividend if you don't have available na written earnings. And ito pa pala, isang news ko rin sa inyo, that under the CREATE Law, Republic Act 11534, wala na po yung accumulated earnings tax. That's why you can accumulate as much as written earnings as you can. Kahit hindi ka mag-declare ng dividend, pwede. Because noon, if you have so much written earnings equal to your capital tax, and then hindi ka na mag-declare ng dividend, you will be charged of the improperly accumulated earnings tax. But because of the CREATE Law, tinanggal na niya yun. So, kahit gaano karami yung accumulate mo na written earnings, wala na pong tax, no? Okay. Next na issue po dito sa Commissioner of Income Tax versus Aegis Limited is whether on the facts and circumstances of the case and in law, the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal erred in deleting an adjustment, no, made under Section 36 1.3 towards interest on interest-free loans advanced to the companies under the same management. Kasi nga, yung instead na investment dun sa shares of stock, tinrate nila na loan. No? Under the same management, relying on the decision of the Honorable Bombay High Court, decision in the case of MS Reliance Utilities and Power Limited, ignoring the fact that the facts of the case are clearly distinguishable, as the assessing officer in the assessment order has clearly brought out that the interest-free funds of the assessee were invested in share investment and fixed assets, and the assessee failed to prove the utilization of borrowed funds for its own business. Yun na. Kaya nga, kahit doon pa lang sa train law, ang dami ng mga requirements sa estate tax pag-claim ng mga loans, no? Kailangan, kung may mga borrowed funds yan na i-charge mo sa estate tax, dapat napakinabangan niya nung namatay. Otherwise, that would be disallowed, no? Kagaya dito, yung mga utilization of borrowed funds for its own business ba yan? Ginamit talaga sa business niya. Okay. Because if not, that can be disallowed as personal expenses. Okay. And then, whether on the facts and circumstances of the case and in law, the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal erred in not considering the fact that the rate of corporate guarantee fee was calculated by the TPO by adopting a scientific approach to a differential in the corresponding credit rating of assessee and the associated enterprise, no? So, yung transfer pricing officer dito, siya yung nag-assess, no? Okay. The respondent assessee is a company registered under the Companies Act. Sino tong respondent assessee? The Aegis Limited. Okay. For the assessment year 2009-2010, the assessee was subjected to transfer pricing regime. No? Question number 1 arises out of the action of the revenue to tax notional interest. No? Yan yung issue number 1 kanina. In the hands of the assessee through transfer pricing. No? The facts are that during the period relevant to the assessment year in question, The assessee had subscribed to a redeemable preferential shares of its associated enterprise, for short, and redeemed some of its shares at par. No? So, yun na yun yung nag-redeem ng shares. Okay. The assessor subscribed to redeemable preferential shares of its associated enterprises, A for short, and redeemed some of its shares at par. No? The transfer pricing officer, or the TPO for short, held that the preference shares were equivalent to the interest-free loans advanced by the assessee and accordingly charged the interest on notional basis. No? Kasi parang interest-free loans lang daw yun na in-advance noong assessee. The tribunal, by the impugned judgment, deleted the addition, observing that the TPO, ito yung sabi ng court, or the transfer pricing officer, had recharacterized the transactions. Ibig sabihin, binago niya yung transactions, no? Instead na investment doon sa preferred shares, ginawa niyang loan, no? And then impose siya ng interest. Okay. Observing that the TPO had recharacterized the transaction of subscription of shares into advancing of unsecured loans. No? The tribunal did not accept such conclusion. Hindi pumanig sa kanya yung court. Inter alia on the grounds that the TPO cannot disregard the apparent transaction and substitute the same without any material of exceptional circumstances pointing out that the assessee had tried to conceal the real transaction or that the transaction in question was a sham. O pag sinabi mo sham transaction, ano yun? Ang purpose is to avoid payment of taxes. No? Sham transaction, gawa-gawa lang. The tribunal observed that the TPO cannot question the commercial expediency of the assessee entered into such transaction. No? So, siguro para sa akin, kulang-kulang yung documentation dito ng TPO or Transfer Pricing Officer. Next, we are broadly in agreement with the view of the tribunal. The facts on record would suggest that the assessee had entered into a transaction of purchase and sale of shares of an associated enterprise. Nothing is brought on record by the revenue to suggest that the transaction was sham. No? Sham. Ibig sabihin, hindi totoong transaction. In absence of any material on record, the TPO could not have treated such transaction as a loan and charged interest thereon on notional basis. So, no question of law arises. No? So, yung court pumanig sa Aegis Limited. Question number 2 relates to the act of the assessee of making interest-free advances to an associated enterprise. The excuse me. May shout out?
Wala pa po.
Pero ilan yung nanood sa atin?
8 viewers po.
Okay. Sinabihan mo sila, Banji?
Sinabihan.
Okay, so interest-free advances to an associated enterprise. The tribunal came to the conclusion that the assessee had sufficient interest-free loans out of which subject advances are made. So ito na yung sabi ko sa inyo na if there are transfer pricing issues that will crop up, medyo ma-justify yun kung kumpleto tayo ng documentation at saka tama yung treatment natin sa transaction. So, okay. So the conclusion that the assessee had sufficient interest-free loans out of which subject advances are made. No? So the tribunal referred to and relied upon the decision of this court in the case of Commissioner of Income Tax versus Reliance Utilities and Power Limited reported in 2009. No? Kaya nga sa Pilipinas, bago pa lang yung transfer pricing, sa ibang bansa, matagal na. Okay. 313 ITR 340, no? And deleted the disallowances. Tinanggal yung mga dinisallow ng transfer pricing officer. So in subject judgment, this court had held and observed as under. So ito na. The revenue being aggrieved by the order preferred an appeal to the tribunal before the tribunal. It was sought to be contended that the shareholders' funds of Crowry ito no? Were utilized for the purchase of fixed assets shown in Schedule D in terms of the balance sheet as on March 31, 1999. It was submitted that the assessee had no reserve or own funds for making the investment in the sister concern, and therefore borrowed funds had been utilized and interest on these investments are for non-business purposes and hence rightly disallowed by the assessing officer. Okay. On the other hand, on behalf of the assessee, the learned counsel relied on the order of the Commissioner of Income Tax and submitted that the assessee had total interest-free fund of 398 crores. No? Okay, so, yun ang kagandahan pag nag-invest ka sa shares of stocks, kasama ka rin dyan sa mga assets na napundal niya. No? May share. No question of law in this respect arises. Question number 3 arises of the additions made by the transfer pricing officer in connection with the corporate guarantee. No? Bakit corporate guarantee? Kasi parang binibigyan niya ng guarantee para makapag-loan. No? Given by the assessee in favor of its associated enterprise. Tribunal restricted subject addition to the 1% guarantee commission relying upon other decision of the tribunal along similar lines. The TPO had, however, added 5% by way of commission. No? So, anuhan sila dito. No? So, nag-charge ng 5%. No? Sabi commission. The learned counsel for the assessed draw our attention to a judgment of this court in the case of Commissioner of Income Tax Mumbai versus Everest Kento Cylinders Limited reported in 2015 and submitted that there is a substantial difference between a bank guarantee and a corporate guarantee. No? So ito na yung sinabi ko sa inyo kanina. Ano ba yung pagkakaiba ng bank guarantee with that of corporate guarantee? No? So he pointed out that this court, in the said judgment, in the case of Everest Kento Cylinders Limited, has recognized that in view of inherent differences between the two lines of guarantee, rate of commission to be charged in its cases would be different. Kasi magkaiba yung bank guarantee at saka yung corporate guarantee. No? Okay. Rate of commission to be charged in its cases would be different. No? So we may reproduce the relevant portion of the judgment of this court. Having considered submission of Mr. Malhotra for the revenue and Mr. Pardiwala for the assessee, we are of the view that the order of the tribunal as regards this allowance under Section 1(4)(a) and restricting the same to RS1 lakh was justified in view of the material before the tribunal. No? So furthermore, having considered the fact that a sum of 4,47649, ito yung crores, no, was not considered in the return, but was ad hoc acceptance during the course of assessment. The assessee could not be bound by it. The tribunal, as the second fact-finding authority, had gone into factual aspect in great detail and therefore, having interpreted the law as it stood on the relevant date of the order passed, cannot be faulted. In the matter of guarantee commission, the judgment made by the TPO were based on the instances restricted to the commercial banks, providing guarantees and did not contemplate the issue of corporate guarantee. No, ano yung prefer nila? The bank guarantee. So no doubt, these are contracts of guarantee. However, when they are commercial banks that issue bank guarantees which are treated as the blood of commerce being easily encashable in the event of default, and if the bank guarantee had to be obtained from commercial banks, the higher commission could have been justified. In the present case, it is assessee company that is issuing corporate guarantee to the effect that if the subsidiary AE does not repay loan availed of it from the ICCI, then in such event, the assessee would make good the amount and repay the loan. The consideration which applied for issuance of a corporate guarantee are distinct and separate from that of bank guarantee. And accordingly, we are of the view that the commission charged cannot be called in question in the manner TPO has done. In our view, the comparison is not as between like transactions, but the comparisons are between guarantees issued by the commercial banks as against a corporate guarantee issued by the holding company for the benefits of its associated enterprises. So a subsidiary company, in view of the above discussion, we are of the view that the appeal does not raise any substantial question of law and it is dismissed. So there will be no order as to cost. Okay. So yun po yung case ng Aegis Limited, panalo po sila dito, Kasi ano yung mga dinisallow dito ng transfer pricing officer, yung kanyang okay. So yung dinisallow dito, yung advance or loan, na nagkaroon siya ng bumili ng shares of stocks sa subsidiary, Okay. Pero hindi yun common shares, preferred shares. Kaya tinrate naman ngayon ng transfer pricing officer na loan at nag-charge siya ng interest, Okay. So, yun lang po yung ating discussion tonight, Hindi lang tayo magtagal ngayon kasi mayroon pa tayong study sa international taxation and then prepare pa tayo ng ating mga lecture bukas. So, with that, I would like to say thank you and good night, everyone.